There is a machine falling through the dark right now. It has no heartbeat, no warmth, no one aboard. And yet it survives. Not for a year, not for a decade. It has endured for nearly half a century, and it will outlast every civilization that ever gazed up and gave the stars a name. Think about that. Everything you have ever loved will turn to dust. The pyramids will erode into sand. The oceans will boil away when the sun swells into a red giant. And still, that lonely metal shell will be gliding onward through the blackness, untouched, unbroken, unbothered by the death of the world that built it. This is not science fiction. This is the coldest, truest fact ever engraved into the fabric of reality. Out there, beyond the reach of our warmth, beyond the last whisper of sunlight, a human-made object is drifting into a silence so total that the human mind was never designed to comprehend it. And here is the part that should stop your breath. It is barely aging at all. On Earth, everything decays. Iron rusts, wood rots, flesh withers. Time is a predator here, and it hunts everything that lives and everything that does not. We are surrounded by the invisible teeth of oxygen, of moisture, of bacteria, of gravity grinding mountains into plains. But deep space is different. Deep space is a vault, and there is no oxygen to corrode the hull, no water to eat the metal, no wind to sand it down, no microbes to consume it, no storms, no rain, no seasons, no weathering of any kind. Out there, the very concept of decay begins to lose its meaning. A spacecraft launched from our world does not die the way we imagine dying. It does not fall apart. It simply continues, and continues, and continues. Consider the machines we have already lost to the void. The twin probes that left our planet in the 1970s, built with technology weaker than the phone resting in your pocket. We stopped being able to fully hear them. Their power is fading, their voices growing faint. But the metal itself, the golden discs bolted to their frames, the aluminum bodies, the delicate wiring, that hardware will remain intact for a length of time that borders on the eternal. Not thousands of years, not millions, billions. Some estimates whisper of a survival measured across the lifespan of stars. These fragile-looking objects, no larger than a small car, may drift through the galaxy for longer than the sun itself will burn. Let the weight of that settle onto you. Humanity may vanish. The Earth may become an airless cinder. And a machine we built by hand in a factory with human fingers and human hope will still be out there. Pristine, gleaming faintly in the light of distant suns, carrying the memory of a species that has long since ceased to exist. That is the horror, and that is the beauty. Now imagine standing beside one of these craft in the depths of interstellar space. Imagine the impossible cold pressing against every surface, temperatures plunging toward the absolute zero of the universe, where atoms themselves fall still and shivering. The metal would not feel cold to you. It would feel like death, and yet the object endures it. It was forged for it. It was designed to slip through the most hostile environment ever known and to keep its shape as if nothing were happening at all. There is a strange, unsettling loneliness to it, a silence with no echo, because out there, sound cannot travel. In the vacuum, there is no medium for a scream, no air to carry a whisper. If the hull were struck by a micrometeoroid, there would be no clang, no ring of metal, only a soundless flash and a puncture, swallowed instantly by the quiet. The spacecraft drifts through this silence with perfect indifference. It does not know it is alone. It does not know we are watching. It does not know that one day we may lose it forever. But here is where the story turns from wonder into something darker, something that gnaws at the edges of the mind. Because survival in deep space is not the same as safety. The void is not empty, not truly. It is filled with invisible violence. A constant, silent rain of radiation streaming from dying stars and distant galactic cores. Cosmic rays, moving at nearly the speed of light, pierce through metal and circuitry alike. Over the ages, these particles carve their signatures into everything they touch, slowly rewriting the atomic structure of the craft, atom by atom, in a process so patient it makes glaciers look frantic. The hull survives, but it is not untouched. Time out there does not chew. It caresses, and its caress lasts forever. There is a phrase that engineers speak of only in careful tones: the slow, relentless degradation of matter under endless cosmic bombardment. It does not destroy a spacecraft. It ages it in ways we can barely measure, across timescales that dwarf recorded history. And still, the object survives. This is the paradox that should keep you awake tonight. We built something more permanent than ourselves. We, the fragile ones. We, who cannot survive a single hour in that vacuum. We, whose bodies would rupture and freeze and boil in the same breath if exposed to the void. We reached up with soft hands and launched a piece of ourselves into a place where we can never follow. And it will endure there long after our hands have crumbled to nothing. There is something almost sacred in that, and something profoundly haunting. Because these machines are not merely surviving, they are carrying us. Etched into their surfaces are the images of our faces, the sounds of our languages, the mathematics of our understanding. They are time capsules hurled into eternity, and they will keep their promise long after there is no one left to remember making it. Picture the fuselage now. The faint metallic sheen catching the light of a star 10,000 years from any home. The edges of the craft glowing softly, rimmed in the pale, cold fire of distant suns. No dust to dull it, no air to fog it, just clean, hard geometry gliding through infinity. It looks new. That is the shock of it. After 10,000 years, it would still look new. You would never imagine how long a real spacecraft survives in deep space, because the answer is not measured in the units we use for human things. Not lifetimes, not empires, not even the rise and fall of species. The answer is measured against the age of the galaxy itself. And in the coming journey, we are going to walk into that darkness together. We are going to understand exactly why these objects refuse to die. We are going to confront the invisible forces that shape them, the impossible cold that preserves them, the radiation that slowly transforms them, and the staggering, mind-breaking spans of time across which they will continue to fall. We will follow them past the edge of the solar system, past the boundary where the sun's influence finally surrenders to the emptiness between the stars. We will ask the question that few dare to ask. If our machines outlive us, then what exactly have we truly created? A monument? A ghost? A message with no reader? Or something stranger still, a fragment of humanity that will drift, gleaming and silent, until the very stars themselves grow old and die? The spacecraft is out there now, falling, surviving, waiting. And what happens to it next is a story unlike anything you have ever been told. To understand why a spacecraft can survive for eons, you must first unlearn everything your world has taught you about time. Here, on the surface of this living planet, time is destruction. Leave a car in a field. Come back in 20 years. The paint has peeled. The metal has bled orange with rust. The seats have rotted. The glass has clouded. The tires have collapsed into brittle ribbons. Nature reclaims it with a patient, devouring hunger. Now take that same car and place it in deep space. Come back not in 20 years, but in 20 million. It would look almost exactly as you left it. This is the truth that unsettles the mind. Decay, as we know it, is not a universal law. It is a local phenomenon. It is a symptom of Earth, a disease carried by our atmosphere, our water, our teeming, restless biology. Strip those away, and time loses its teeth. Consider what actually destroys objects on our world. The greatest enemy is oxygen. That invisible gas we breathe to stay alive is, to metal, a slow-acting poison. Oxidation. The chemical marriage of oxygen and iron that produces rust, that crumbles bridges, that eats through the strongest steel given enough decades. In deep space, there is no oxygen. None. The reaction simply cannot occur. The metal cannot rust, because there is nothing left to rust it. Then there is water, the gentle sculptor that carves canyons and dissolves stone. Water seeps into cracks, freezes, expands, and shatters. Water carries salts that accelerate corrosion. Water is the medium in which nearly all earthly decay unfolds. The void is drier than any desert that has ever existed, drier than the driest place on Earth by a factor beyond comprehension. In interstellar space, water exists only as scattered ghosts. A molecule here, a molecule there, drifting light years apart. Nothing seeps, nothing freezes, nothing shatters. And life, the great recycler, the engine that breaks all dead things back down into soil. Life is utterly absent. No bacteria to feast on organic compounds, no fungi to spread their patient threads, no insects, no roots, no microbial tide. In the deep dark, a spacecraft is not food for anything. It is simply left alone. And this is the first great philosophical shock hidden inside the science. We tend to believe that decay is the natural order, that all things must fall apart, that entropy is destiny, that nothing lasts. We build this belief into our poetry, our religions, our sense of mortality. But decay is not natural. Decay is contextual. Our bodies rot because we are surrounded by the very forces that consume us. Take away the oxygen, the water, the microbes, the warmth, and the machinery of destruction grinds to a halt. Preservation, not decay, becomes the default. The universe, it turns out, is a museum, and its exhibits do not fade. Think of the Great Pyramids, which we praise as symbols of permanence. They have stood for roughly 4,500 years, and already the wind has scoured their faces smooth. Already their limestone casings have crumbled and been stripped away. 4,500 years of gentle, earthly erosion has left them scarred and diminished. A spacecraft in interstellar space would endure 4,500 years without registering the passage at all. And then it would endure 4,500 more, and 1,000 times that again. The pyramids are children compared to what we have flung into the dark. Now let us go deeper, into the strange physics of temperature, because the cold of space is not what most people imagine. You might think that objects in space simply freeze the way water freezes in a winter pond, but freezing requires contact. Heat leaves your body on a cold night because the air steals it away, molecule by molecule, carrying it off through touch and convection. In the vacuum, there is nothing to touch. There is no air to carry heat away. And so, a spacecraft loses warmth only through radiation. The slow, patient glow of infrared light bleeding off its surface into the emptiness. This is a far gentler process than the brutal theft of a winter wind. An object in deep space can hold a strange, uneven temperature, scorching on the side that faces a distant star, plunging toward absolute zero on the side that faces the void. There is no air to blend these extremes, no atmosphere to soften the divide. The craft becomes a paradox of fire and ice, split down the middle, both burning and freezing at once. And absolute zero, that ultimate cold, is not merely very cold. It is the temperature at which motion itself ceases, the point where atoms, which are always trembling, always vibrating, finally fall still. It is the coldest that anything can possibly be. A wall the universe cannot cross. The empty space between the stars hovers just a few degrees above this absolute limit, chilled by nothing but the faint, ancient afterglow of the birth of the cosmos itself, a whisper of warmth left over from the beginning of everything. Our spacecraft falls through this near-perfect stillness, and in that stillness, its atoms slow, its materials stabilize, its very being is locked into a kind of suspended animation. Cold preserves. We know this instinctively. We freeze food to stop it from spoiling. We chill medicines to extend their life. Cold slows the reactions that break things down. And there is no cold in all creation deeper than the cold between the stars. So our machine is not merely surviving the cold, it is being embalmed by it. Here, the philosophy turns heavy, because we too are chemistry. We too are reactions, the warm, wet, restless dance of molecules that we call life. And that warmth, that restlessness, that very heat which makes us alive, is also what makes us temporary. To live is to burn, and to burn is to be consumed. The spacecraft does not burn. It does not live. And so it does not die. We built a thing that escapes mortality precisely because it was never alive. And in doing so, we created a strange mirror of our deepest longing. For all of human history, we have dreamed of immortality. We have written it into our myths, promised it in our faiths, chased it in our medicine. And we achieved it, not for ourselves, for our machines. The immortal thing we made cannot feel its own immortality. It drifts, deathless and unknowing, through a preservation we can only envy. It is the fulfillment of our oldest wish, granted to the one kind of traveler who can never appreciate the gift. There is a cruelty in that, and a lesson. Perhaps permanence and awareness cannot coexist. Perhaps to be conscious is to be fragile, to be the kind of thing that warmth animates and time devours. Perhaps the price of experiencing the universe is the certainty of leaving it. The spacecraft experiences nothing, and so it stays. Now consider the scale of what surrounds it. When we speak of a craft leaving the solar system, we imagine it crossing some clean boundary, like a ship passing a harbor wall. But the reality is far stranger and far lonelier. The distance between our sun and the next nearest star is so vast that light itself, the fastest thing in existence, capable of circling our entire planet 7 times in a single second, takes more than 4 years to make the crossing. And our fastest machines move at a tiny fraction of light speed. A probe leaving our solar system today, aimed directly at the nearest star, would not arrive in 100 years. not in 1,000. It would take tens of thousands of years to reach even our closest stellar neighbor. And most of our craft are not aimed at anything at all. They fall into the gaps between the stars, the true wilderness of the galaxy, where stars are so sparse that a spacecraft can drift for 100,000 years and come no closer to any of them. The emptiness is not the exception out there. The emptiness is the rule. This is the vault into which we have placed our immortal machines, not a tomb, but a cathedral of nothing, vast beyond measure, cold beyond feeling, silent beyond sound. And in that cathedral, our creations will kneel forever, gleaming faintly in the starlight, worshiping no god, awaiting no rescue, preserved by the very emptiness that would kill us in an instant. We wanted to touch eternity. We forgot to ask what eternity does to those who touch it. And in the next chapter of this journey, we will confront the invisible enemy that even this perfect vault cannot keep out. The silent, ceaseless violence that streams through the dark, rewriting our machines one atom at a time. The vault is not perfect. There is one enemy that no vacuum can lock out. One force that passes through metal as easily as light passes through glass. One violence so constant, so ancient, so utterly indifferent, that it has been falling since before the earth existed and will keep falling long after the earth is gone. Radiation, not the gentle warmth of sunlight on your skin. Something far stranger, far more violent. A ceaseless downpour of particles moving at nearly the speed of light. Invisible bullets fired from the corpses of dead stars, from the churning hearts of distant galaxies, from cataclysms so far away that their light left before humanity learned to walk. This is the cosmic ray, and it never stops. Right now, as you read these words, these particles are passing through your body, through the roof above you, through the entire planet. A few of them are streaking through your very cells at this exact moment, leaving microscopic scars you will never feel. On Earth, we are shielded. Our thick atmosphere absorbs most of this onslaught, and our planet's magnetic field, an invisible cocoon woven by the molten iron churning deep beneath our feet, deflects the rest. We live our entire lives inside a fortress we cannot see, protected by defenses we rarely think about. The spacecraft has no such fortress. Out there, naked in the void, it endures the full fury of the cosmos. Every second, particles slam into its hull. Most pass straight through, harmless in their singularity. But over the vast spans of deep time, over the millions and billions of years that these machines will drift, the sheer number becomes staggering. Imagine a single raindrop striking a mountain. It means nothing. Now imagine that raindrop falling every second for 1 billion years. The mountain will be carved into a valley. This is what happens to a spacecraft. Not a sudden destruction. A slow, patient rewriting. Each cosmic particle that strikes an atom in the hull can knock it slightly out of place, or transform it entirely, changing one element into another through the violence of impact. Atom by atom, the very substance of the craft is altered. The metal remains metal mostly. The shape holds, but at the deepest level, the level of individual atoms, the spacecraft slowly becomes something subtly different from what it was when it left our hands. It is aged not by decay, but by transmutation. And here we arrive at a truth that carries a strange and heavy weight. Because this same invisible rain does something to information, it corrupts it. The most delicate parts of any spacecraft are not the metal beams or the outer shell. They are the memories, the stored data, the electronics that hold instructions and images, and the accumulated knowledge we entrusted to the machine. Radiation is poison to memory. A single cosmic ray, striking a memory cell at the wrong moment, can flip a piece of stored information, turning a 1 into a 0, a yes into a no, a truth into a lie. Engineers have a name for this quiet sabotage. They call it a single event upset, a ghost in the machine, a corruption with no cause you could ever trace. Over enough time, these tiny corruptions accumulate. The spacecraft's mind slowly dissolves, not through breaking, but through forgetting. And consider the terrible poetry in that. We build these machines to remember us, to carry our images, our sounds, our mathematics into eternity. And the universe, patient and pitiless, slowly erases those memories, one flipped bit at a time. The body endures, the mind fades. Is this not the oldest human fear, played out on a cosmic stage? We do not fear the death of our flesh half so much as we fear the death of our memory. The day when no one remembers our name, when the stories we carried are forgotten, when everything we knew simply vanishes. Our machines will suffer the same fate. Their hulls will gleam, immortal and unchanging. But the thoughts inside them will drain away into the dark, until only the empty shell remains. A beautiful, deathless body with nothing left inside. There is something that should trouble you deeply here. The physical golden records bolted to some of our probes, the discs engraved with the sounds and images of Earth, are far more durable than the electronic memories. Because they are not electronic at all. They are physical grooves, cut into metal, protected by careful design. These may survive the radiation for 1 billion years or more. But who would read them? The knowledge of how to interpret them, the very context that gives them meaning, is not carried in the grooves. It is carried in us, and we will be gone. Imagine an alien civilization, 10 million years from now, intercepting one of these silent travelers. They find a golden disc, perfectly preserved, covered in symbols. They hold in their hands the complete testimony of a species, its music, its greetings, the location of its home. And they may never understand a single fragment of it. The message survives. The meaning does not. This is perhaps the loneliest possibility in all of science. That we have sent letters into eternity, written in a language that will die with us. That our machines will carry our voices forever. But that those voices will become, in time, nothing more than beautiful noise, patterns without a key, songs without an ear that knows the tune. We are shouting into the future, and the future may not speak our tongue. Now let us turn to another silent violence, one that comes not from distant stars, but from the emptiness itself. For even the vacuum is not truly empty. Scattered through the void, thin as a rumor, are grains of dust and ice, some smaller than a speck of pollen, others as large as a grain of sand. At ordinary speeds, these would be nothing. But a spacecraft in deep space is not moving at ordinary speeds. It tears through the void at tens of thousands of miles per hour, faster than any bullet ever fired. At those speeds, a grain of sand becomes a weapon. When a micrometeorite the size of a dust mote strikes the hull, it does not simply bounce off. It vaporizes on impact, releasing a burst of energy far out of proportion to its size, punching a microscopic crater into the metal, or in rare cases, tearing straight through. Over 1 billion years, the hull accumulates these wounds. A constant, silent peppering. each impact soundless in the vacuum, a flash, a puncture, and then the quiet again. The spacecraft becomes scarred, pitted, marked by 10,000 invisible battles it fought against grains of dust while crossing the ocean of the dark. And yet, and this is the wonder, it survives even this. The odds of any single impact striking a critical component are vanishingly small. The craft is mostly empty space and sturdy metal. The dust is spread so thin across the void that even 1 billion years of collisions leaves the machine wounded but whole. It bleeds no blood. It feels no pain. It simply carries its scars onward. A veteran of a war that has no enemy and no end. Here is the final philosophical weight of this chapter. We have built objects that endure two opposite fates at once. Their bodies are nearly immortal, preserved by the cold, unbothered by decay, resistant to the dust. But their minds are mortal, slowly erased by radiation, forgetting themselves one bit at a time. They are a perfect metaphor for a terror we rarely name. That the flesh might outlive the self. We fear this even in our own lives. The body that survives while the mind fades, the shell that remains while the person inside slips away. Our machines will suffer this same fate, magnified across the eons, drifting deathless and empty through a galaxy that has forgotten they were ever sent. The invisible rain falls on them still, rewriting, erasing, transmuting, turning our messengers into monuments and our monuments into mysteries. And in the next chapter, we will follow these silent travelers past the final boundary of our sun's kingdom, into the true wilderness between the stars, where the rules of distance and time break down entirely, and the loneliness becomes something the human mind was never built to hold. There is a place where the sun finally lets go. Not a wall, not a line drawn in the dark, but a boundary all the same. The exact point where the endless wind of particles streaming from our star grows too weak to push any further and surrenders to the emptiness that lies beyond. It is called the edge of the heliosphere, the border of the sun's kingdom, and crossing it is the loneliest thing a machine can do. For its entire journey up to that moment, a spacecraft has traveled inside a bubble, a vast, invisible cocoon of solar wind that surrounds our entire planetary family, stretching billions of miles in every direction. A warm breath from our star that fills the darkness and holds the deeper cold at bay. Inside that bubble, the craft is still, in some faint sense, home. Still bathed in the sun's influence, still a citizen of the solar system. And then it crosses. The moment is not dramatic. There is no gate, no sound, no flash of light. There is only a subtle change in the particles pressing against the hull. A shift so quiet that the machine itself can barely detect it. The warm solar wind fades. The cold interstellar wind takes its place, and in that instant, the spacecraft becomes something no human hand has ever been. It becomes interstellar. It leaves the kingdom of the sun and enters the wilderness between the stars. A realm so vast, so empty, so profoundly indifferent, that everything we have ever built or dreamed shrinks into insignificance beside it. Only a handful of our machines have crossed this threshold. They are the first ambassadors of Earth to the true galaxy, and they will be the last things we ever hear from. Because beyond that boundary, their voices grow faint, their power dwindles, and one by one, they fall silent. Not dead, just unreachable. Consider what it means to lose contact with something that still exists. The spacecraft does not stop. It does not break. It simply drifts beyond the range of our listening, still whole, still traveling, still carrying everything we gave it, but forever beyond our reach. It is a kind of death that is not death, a separation more complete than any grave. We will know it is out there. We will be able to calculate its path across the coming millennia, but we will never again receive a single whisper from it. It becomes a ghost we cannot follow, a child that has walked into a room we can never enter, and it keeps walking. Now let us confront the true scale of the wilderness it enters. Because the human mind, forged on a small planet, has no natural capacity to hold these distances. We must build the understanding piece by piece, like climbing a staircase into the impossible. Light, the fastest thing that exists, travels at a speed that lets it cross the entire span of our planet in a fraction of a heartbeat. From the sun, that same light takes 8 minutes to reach us. To cross our whole solar system, out past the edge of the sun's kingdom, that light travels for many hours. But to reach the next nearest star, that same light must travel for more than 4 years. 4 years at the speed of light, through nothing. And our spacecraft do not move at the speed of light. They move at a crawl by comparison, a tiny sliver of that ultimate speed. What light crosses in 4 years, our fastest machines would take tens of thousands of years to traverse. Tens of thousands of years to reach the closest star. And that is the closest one. Most of the galaxy is far more remote. The stars are scattered across the dark like grains of sand, strewn across an entire ocean, so far apart that a spacecraft could drift for 100,000 years and never pass near a single one. The emptiness between them is not a gap in the galaxy. The emptiness is the galaxy. We imagine space as crowded with stars because when we look up, the night sky seems full of them. But that fullness is an illusion of perspective, like the lights of a distant city that seem clustered together when in truth they are miles apart. Stretch out into that city and you find it is mostly empty streets and silent darkness. Our spacecraft travels those empty streets for 100,000 years, for 1,000,000, for longer. And here we touch a philosophical vertigo that few dare to look at directly. Because these timescales are not just large. They are meaningless to us. They exceed the entire span of human existence by such a margin that our minds simply refuse to grasp them. Our species, modern humanity, has existed for perhaps 300,000 years. All of recorded history, every empire, every war, every love story ever written, fits into the last few thousand of those years. A spacecraft drifting to the nearest star spends more time in transit than the entirety of human civilization has existed. And that is a short trip by cosmic standards. Think about what this means for the machine. It will outlast not just individuals, not just nations, but the entire concept of humanity. It will still be traveling when our language is dead, when our species has transformed into something unrecognizable or vanished altogether. It will keep its silent course through epochs so distant that no thread of memory could possibly connect them to the world that launched it. The spacecraft becomes a traveler through deep time itself, and this reveals something almost unbearable about our place in the universe. We are creatures of the instant. We measure our lives in decades, our attention in seconds. We can barely plan for the next generation, let alone the next 1,000 years. Yet we have flung objects into a river of time so vast that our entire existence is less than a single drop within it. We are temporary things that have created nearly permanent messengers. And those messengers will carry the fact of our existence across gulfs of time we cannot even conceive. a signature written on eternity by hands that lasted only a moment. There is a strange comfort in this, and a strange terror. The comfort that we mattered enough to leave a mark, that the universe, vast and indifferent, will carry some trace of us onward, whether or not anyone ever finds it. We were here, and the proof is out there, drifting, gleaming, refusing to disappear. The terror that the mark is so small that against the true scale of the galaxy, our greatest achievement is a handful of tiny machines lost in an ocean so large they will likely never be found by anyone. We wanted to touch the stars, and we managed to place a few grains of sand into an emptiness that swallows worlds. Both truths are real. They live together, uneasily, in the same fact. Now consider the direction of the journey. These craft are not aimed at anything. They were launched to study the planets of our own system, and only afterwards slingshot outward into the dark, their trajectories set by the gravity of the worlds they passed. They travel toward no destination. They simply travel, and yet, across the immense spans of time ahead, chance will guide them. In tens of thousands of years, one of our probes will drift within a few light years of a distant star, not close enough to be captured, but close enough to become, briefly, a visitor in another sun's domain. Then it will pass on, back into the emptiness, continuing its aimless, deathless wandering. It will do this again and again, across millions of years, passing star after star, never stopping, never arriving, never resting. It is the ultimate nomad, a wanderer with no home and no end. A traveler that will still be traveling when the very shape of the galaxy has changed, when the constellations we know have scattered and reformed into patterns no human eye will ever see. There is a loneliness in this so pure that it becomes almost holy. To move forever, to carry a message no one may read, to pass through the kingdoms of 1,000 distant suns and be welcomed by none. To be, in the end, the most enduring thing our species ever made, and to endure it entirely alone. The spacecraft does not know its own loneliness. That mercy is denied to us who imagine it. And in the next chapter, we will confront the deepest question of all. What happens at the very end of these journeys, across timescales so vast that even the stars themselves begin to die? We have spoken of millions of years, of hundreds of thousands, of timescales that dwarf all of human history. Now we must go further. We must go to the place where even those numbers become small, where the spacecraft outlives not just us, not just our species, but the very stars that light its endless path. Because our machines will still be traveling when the sun dies. Let that thought settle into you, slowly. The sun, the source of all warmth, all light, all life that ever crawled or flew or dreamed upon the earth, is not eternal. It burns through its fuel at a steady, relentless pace, and one distant day, that fuel will run out. In roughly 5 billion years, our star will begin to change. It will swell. It will redden. It will grow into a bloated giant, expanding outward until it swallows the innermost planets whole. Mercury, then Venus, and quite possibly the Earth itself, engulfed in fire and reduced to vapor. The oceans will have boiled away long before that final moment. The atmosphere will have been stripped into space. Every mountain, every city, every trace of everything we ever built will be erased. The Earth will end, and our spacecraft will not even notice. By the time the sun dies, the probes we launched will be so far away, so lost in the interstellar dark, that the death of their birthplace will register as nothing more than the dimming of one distant point of light among billions. The star that made them will perish, and they will drift on, indifferent, unharmed, unaware. They will become orphans of a dead sun. There is a grief in this that words can barely carry. The most permanent things we ever made will outlive the very world that made them. And they will carry, etched into their surfaces, the images of a planet that no longer exists. Photographs of oceans that boiled away eons ago. Recordings of birdsong from species long extinct. Greetings in languages spoken by a civilization that turned to dust before the message was even halfway to its first star. The spacecraft becomes a tomb for a world. A gleaming reliquary, carrying the memory of Earth through a galaxy where Earth is no longer anything but a story the machine itself can no longer tell. And still, it survives. For after the sun dies, it will not vanish. It will shed its outer layers into a glowing shroud, and its core will collapse into a white dwarf, a dense, dying ember roughly the size of our planet, so tightly packed that a single spoonful of it would weigh as much as a mountain. This ember will glow faintly for billions upon billions of years, cooling slowly toward darkness. And somewhere in the distant dark, our spacecraft will still be traveling. Now we must confront the truly unimaginable spans, because the durability of these machines is measured not in millions of years, but in billions. Some estimates reaching into the tens of billions or even beyond, into timescales that begin to rival the age of the universe itself. The universe, as best we can measure, is not quite 14 billion years old. And a spacecraft in deep space, shielded by the vacuum, preserved by the cold, may endure for a span comparable to that entire history. It may exist for as long as everything that has ever existed has existed. Think of what this means. A machine we built by hand, in a matter of years, using the labor of a few thousand people, may persist through a stretch of time equal to the whole life of the cosmos up to this moment. From the birth of the first stars to now, that is roughly how long our little probe might endure. We compressed eternity into aluminum and gold, and we did it almost by accident. We did not set out to build immortal things. We set out to study the planets, to satisfy our curiosity, to reach a little further into the dark. Immortality was simply a side effect, an unintended gift bestowed by the nature of the void. We stumbled into eternity while trying to take a photograph. Now let us look ahead to the far future of the galaxy itself. Because even the galaxy will not remain as it is. Over the coming billions of years, our galaxy is destined to collide with its great neighbor, the vast spiral that hangs in our night sky. The two will merge in a slow, silent dance, their stars sweeping past one another, their shapes distorting and blending into something new. This collision, this titanic reshaping of two entire galaxies, will unfold over billions of years, and through it all, our spacecraft will drift. The stars are so far apart that even in a galactic collision, direct impacts are almost impossible. The galaxies will pass through each other like two clouds of smoke merging in still air. Vast, dramatic, and yet, at the scale of any individual star, almost gentle. Our probe will simply find itself, one distant day, in a sky rearranged. New constellations, new neighbors, a galaxy transformed. And it will not have changed at all. It will carry the same scars from the same ancient dust impacts, the same faint gleam on its metal skin, the same silent grooves cut into its golden disk, a relic from a vanished world, adrift in a galaxy that no longer resembles the one it was born into. Here we reach perhaps the deepest philosophical vertigo of all. Permanence, we begin to see, is not the comfort we imagined it to be. We spend our lives longing for things to last. We build monuments, write our names, seek to be remembered. We treat impermanence as the great tragedy, the thing to be resisted, the enemy of all meaning. But look at what true permanence becomes. The spacecraft lasts, and in lasting, it becomes utterly alone. It outlives everyone who could give it meaning. It outlives the language that could explain it, the species that could recognize it, the world that could claim it. It becomes a thing without context, a perfect, gleaming object that means nothing to anyone, drifting through a universe that has forgotten it entirely. Is that not a kind of hell? To exist forever, unchanging, in a cosmos that has moved on without you? Perhaps impermanence is not our curse. Perhaps it is our mercy. We are woven into the world precisely because we do not last. Our brevity binds us to our moment, to the people beside us, the light of our particular sun, the specific and unrepeatable now. We belong to our time because we cannot escape it. And in belonging, we find meaning. The spacecraft belongs to no time, and so it belongs nowhere. It has purchased eternity at the price of connection. It will exist longer than anything we love, and it will never feel a single moment of that existence. It is the loneliest kind of forever. Presence without meaning, endurance without experience, a body that persists while every reason for its persistence dissolves into the dark. We want it to last forever. The spacecraft shows us what forever costs. And yet, there remains one final possibility, one slender thread of hope woven through all this vast indifference. Because across the immense reaches of time, across the billions of years and the countless stars, there exists the faintest, most fragile chance that someone, somewhere, might find it. That another mind, born on another world, might one day drift close enough to intercept our silent wanderer. That they might lift it gently from the dark and turn it in their strange hands and wonder. And in that single moment, impossibly distant, impossibly unlikely, the spacecraft's long loneliness would end. Its meaning would return. A message sent across the death of worlds would finally, at last, be received. We will never know if this happens. We will be long gone before the chance even arises. But we sent them anyway, knowing the odds, knowing the emptiness, knowing that we would never learn the answer. We reached into eternity and released our fragile messengers into the dark, on the strength of nothing but hope. And in the final chapter of this journey, we will ask what that hope means, what it says about us, the temporary creatures who dared to write letters to forever, and what our immortal machines ultimately reveal about the fleeting, luminous, impossibly brief miracle of being alive. So we return, at the end, to the beginning, to a machine falling through the dark. No heartbeat, no warmth, no one aboard. We have followed it now to the edge of comprehension. We have watched it survive the cold that stills the atoms. We have watched it endure the invisible rain that rewrites its very substance. We have watched it cross the border of the sun's kingdom and vanish into a wilderness so vast that the nearest star is a journey longer than all of human history. We have watched it outlive the earth. We have watched it outlive the sun. We have carried it forward through the collision of galaxies into timescales that rival the age of the universe itself. And through all of it, one truth has held. It survives. You would never imagine how long a real spacecraft survives in deep space. And now you know. Not in years, not in centuries, not in the rise and fall of empires, but across the lifespan of stars, across the death of worlds, across a stretch of eternity so vast that our entire species is less than a single breath within it. That is the answer to the question we began with. But the answer, as it turns out, was never really about the spacecraft at all. It was about us. Because here is the thing we must finally face, we, the fragile ones, the temporary ones, the creatures who cannot survive a single moment in the void. We are the ones who built the immortal thing. We reached up with soft and mortal hands and placed a piece of ourselves into a permanence we can never share. Why? Why would a species that lasts only a heartbeat pour its effort into messengers that will outlast the stars? Why would beings who know they will die spend their brief lives writing letters to a forever they will never see? The answer is the most human thing there is. Hope, not certainty, not evidence, not any rational expectation of reward. We sent these machines into the dark, knowing we would never learn their fate, knowing the odds of discovery were almost nothing, knowing that we, personally, and our children, and our children's children for 10,000 generations, would all be dust before the message even reached its first distant star. And we sent them anyway. There is a defiance in that act so profound, it borders on the sacred. The universe is vast and cold and utterly indifferent to us. It did not ask for us. It will not mourn us. It will continue unchanged, whether we ever existed or not. And we looked into that indifference, and we answered it. We said, we were here. We carved our faces into gold. We recorded the sound of a mother's voice, the laughter of children, the music we made in our brief flicker of existence. We gathered the beauty of a single living world, and we placed it into a bottle, and we cast it into the largest ocean that has ever existed. On the strength of nothing but the refusal to disappear without a trace. That is not the act of a species that believes it is small. That is the act of a species that has looked its own insignificance in the eye, and chosen meaning anyway. Consider the strange inversion at the heart of this entire story. We began by marveling at the permanence of the spacecraft, and pitying our own fragility by comparison. The machine endures. We perish. The machine is nearly eternal. We are almost nothing. But somewhere along this journey, the truth quietly reversed itself. The spacecraft lasts forever and feels nothing. It drifts through the most magnificent sights in creation, past the birth and death of stars, through the collision of galaxies, and it does not see a single one. It carries the memory of everything we love, and it cannot love. It exists across eternity, and it does not experience even 1 second of it. We last only a moment, and in that moment, we feel everything. We see the light of the setting sun, and it moves us. We hold the hand of someone we love, and our whole being fills with warmth. We look up at the night sky, and we are struck with a wonder so deep, it aches. We are alive, truly, consciously, gloriously alive, in a way the immortal machine can never be. And so the question turns. Which of us is truly rich? The deathless thing that experiences nothing? Or the dying thing that experiences everything? The spacecraft has purchased eternity, and it is empty. We have purchased only a moment, and it is overflowing. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson the void has to teach us, that permanence and presence are two different gifts, and we cannot have both. To last forever is to feel nothing. To feel anything is to be temporary. And of the two, it may be the temporary that is the true miracle. The universe is filled with permanent things, dead stars that will smolder for 1 trillion years, cold rock that will drift unchanged until the end of time, empty space that has endured since the beginning. Permanence is common. Permanence is cheap. The cosmos is drowning in it. But awareness, the ability to look at all of this and to know it, to feel it, to be moved by it, that is rare beyond measure. In all the vast dark we have explored, we have found the permanent everywhere and the conscious almost nowhere. We are the rare thing, not the spacecraft, us. And this reframes everything about our fleeting lives. We are not the failures of the universe, the fragile creatures who could not manage to last. We are its triumph, the improbable, luminous moment when the cosmos opened its eyes and for the first time saw itself. The spacecraft is our shadow, thrown forward into eternity. It carries our image, but not our essence. It will outlast us in duration, but it will never touch the thing that made us worth remembering in the first place. The fact that we were here, awake, aware, alive, filling our brief moment with love and grief and wonder and hope. So let the machine drift on. Let it carry its golden memories through the death of worlds. Let it pass the distant suns and be welcomed by none. Let it endure for 10 billion years in the perfect, silent cold. It is our monument, and it is beautiful, and it is worthy of our awe. But it is not our achievement. Our achievement was the living. Our achievement was the moment we stood on a small blue world, knowing we would die, and chose to reach for the stars anyway. Our achievement was the courage to write a letter to a forever we would never see, and to mean every word of it. The spacecraft will forget us. The radiation will erase its memories, one flipped bit at a time, until the machine no longer knows what it carries. But that erasure changes nothing about the truth of what we did. We existed. We loved. We looked up. We reached out. And no death of any star, no collision of any galaxy, no silence of any void can ever make that untrue. It happened. It is woven permanently into the history of the universe, more indelibly than any groove cut into any golden disk. The past cannot be unmade. We were here, and we always will have been here, forever. That is the permanence that matters. Not the metal, not the gold, not the deathless drifting body in the dark, but the fact of our brief, blazing, impossible existence. The moment the universe woke up and wondered at itself and decided to send a message into eternity that said, simply, softly, across all the cold and all the dark and all the endless silence, we were here, and we were not afraid to be small. Somewhere out there, right now, the machine is still falling, still surviving, still carrying our faces into a future we will never see. Let it go. We gave it the only thing we ever truly had to give, not our permanence, but our hope. And hope, unlike metal, does not need to last forever. It only needs to have existed once.